We are done with all the exercises and problems in chapter 1. Make sure the class rep will get the link for the recorded discussion this morning and this afternoon with group 5, 6, and 7. So now we go to the next chapter, which is chapter 2. And chapter 2 focuses on job order costing. So a little review of what we have learned in chapter 1. So I'd like to share with you, okay, the format of your cost of goods sold statement, which is a supplementary statement that will support the amount of cost of goods sold that is shown in the income statement. Okay, so this is a pro forma statement. You the details how the cost of goods sold is computed. Now, in your basic accounting subject, you have learned how to compute your cost of sales. So, in a manufacturing firm, instead of calling it cost of sales, we call it cost of goods sold instead. So for manufacturing firms, which is now the focus of our discussion in cost accounting, manufacturing firm, as you all know, is a type of business that requires the conversion of raw materials into finished products. So in order to convert the raw materials into finished products, you need to add your direct labor cost and the overhead that is applied to production. So remember, there are three elements of costs. We are referring to the three elements of production costs, namely materials, labor, and factory overhead, which is sometimes called factory burden or manufacturing overhead. Both direct materials and direct labor costs are considered variable costs since the cost of materials and labor will increase as the volume increases, and it will also decrease as the volume decreases. That is why we define the variable cost as costs that are directly proportional to the changes in the activity level or volume of production. So it moves in the same direction as your production changes. So if production increases, total variable cost will also increase. If production goes down or decreases, then TVC also decreases. But on a per unit basis, the variable cost per unit is constant. It remains the same. So if we are to differentiate the variable costs from the fixed costs, so in terms of total, the variable cost will vary as production will vary. Fixed costs will be constant in terms of total. Meaning to say, it remains the same regardless of whether the volume increases or decreases or no change at all. But on a per unit basis, okay, on a per unit basis, the variable cost is constant. It remains the same per unit, whether you increase or you decrease the volume of production. But in terms of the fixed cost per unit will vary as the volume changes. So for example, clothing material that you used in producing RTWs, the ready-to-wear apparel. So the clothing material, if let us say, for the women, how many meters of clothing material do you need for one simple dress? So, depende sa kadakon, depende sa kataas, depende sa style sa imong dress. So, let us say for a simple dress, 1 meter of clothing material will be fine for small women, di ba? Makatahi na kag sinina for 1 meter of the fabric of the clothing material. If let us say 1 meter will cost you 150 pesos per meter. Okay. So, if you are going to make 100 dresses, so how much will be the cost of clothing materials to produce 100 dresses? Minimum quantity of output, your production volume, 100 dresses. So you need how much as the total cost of the clothing material?
15,000, Miss.
15,000.
Correct. That would cost you 15,000 pesos. Supposing you reduce, okay, ano naman eh? For a while, huh? Okay, so kana. Supposing you reduce the quantity from 100 dresses to 50 lang. If you will only produce, saan na ni? Uy. If you produce only 50 dresses, so how many clothing materials will you have?
7,500. Miss.
Okay, kung 50 dresses lang, the total cost of the clothing materials that you need will be, pila? 7,500?
Yes, Miss.
Yes.
Okay. 7,500. So notice, class, as the volume goes down, your TVC goes down. Instead of 15,000, 7.5 na lang. If you increase the output from 50 to 100 dresses, then the total cost of the clothing material is 50,000, isn't it? So if you are going to divide 15,000 by 100 dresses, the cost per meter is 150. If you divide 7,500 by 50 dresses, you get the variable cost per unit at 150 pesos per meter. So that is constant per dress. So that is constant. It remains the same on a per unit or per dress, no? Per dress, per meter. Okay. But in terms of the total variable cost, the TVC, changes as the quantity changes. So if the quantity goes up, TVC goes up. If the TVC goes down, TVC also goes down. So clothing material, the cost of the clothing material is a typical example of a variable cost. Now, what about the fixed cost? The fixed cost is constant in total but will vary on a per unit basis. For example, the monthly rental of the warehouse is 50,000 pesos. 50,000 pesos. Regardless of how many units you're going to produce, your rental is fixed at 50,000 pesos per month. That's the total fixed cost. Supposing in month 1, your output is 50,000 units. So dividing the monthly rental of 50,000 pesos by 50,000 units, the resulting fixed cost per unit, or the UFC ketchup, unit fixed cost is how much? 50,000 divided by 50,000 units equals?
1 miss.
1 po.
1 miss.
1 May.
Carabao? 1%? Okay, the answer is? Give a complete answer. 50,000 pesos divided by 50,000 units produced equals 1 peso per unit. That's your UFC, the unit fixed cost. Or you can also call it as fixed cost per unit. What if the output will increase from 50,000, it becomes 150,000. From 50,000 units, mahimo ng 150,000 units ang current production. So may increase. So dividing the monthly rental of 50,000 pesos by the production output of 150,000 units equals what? 50 divided by 150, that's 1/3, right? Or that's 0.3333. Is that correct?
Yes po.
Yes, miss.
So 33, is it 33 pesos and 33 cents? Or is it 33 centavos per unit produced?
33 centavos.
It is 33 centavos per unit. So that is your fixed cost per unit. But if your production volume is only 50,000 units, that would be 1 peso per unit. So for the fixed cost, if the volume increases, the fixed cost per unit will go up or go down? If the volume increases, the fixed cost per unit will
Go down.
Go down.
Decreases, Miss.
the total rental is shared by many units, thus resulting to a lower unit cost spread over a greater number man, di ba? So mauna ang 50,000 divided by 150,000 units will give you 0.33 per unit. But if you produced only 50,000 units, then the monthly rental of 50,000 divided by 50,000 units will bring you to a fixed cost per unit of 1 peso per unit. See? Ang usa, 1 peso. Ang usa, 33 cents. So as volume increases, the fixed cost per unit goes down. It has an opposite effect. But in terms of total, it is constant. It remains at 50,000 pesos ang rental sa warehouse regardless of how many units you are going to produce for the month. So is that understood?
Yes, Miss.
Yes.
Okay. So remember the characteristic of the variable cost and the fixed cost. So the detailed computation of cost of goods sold is found in this supplementary report called Cost of Goods Sold Statement, otherwise known as Statement of Cost of Goods Sold. So we start with your direct materials used. So to compute the direct materials used, we begin with materials inventory beginning. So ang ending inventory sa materials last month or last year automatically becomes the materials inventory beginning this month or this year. Kay ang beginning inventory is not enough to serve the current production requirements. So the business will acquire additional materials from outside sources, from their external supplier. So add the material purchases with the available stocks at the beginning of the year, which was the extra units that were left unused or unsold last month or last year. So adding the materials inventory beginning and the material purchases gives you your MAU, materials available for use. This is a combination of both direct and indirect materials. Deduct the materials inventory and the balance is your direct materials used. Add to your direct materials used the direct labor cost, add the overhead applied to production. So when you add direct materials used, direct labor, and overhead applied to production, you will get the TMC, total manufacturing cost. Sometimes we call it total production cost. Add the work in process inventory beginning, which represents the cost of the unfinished jobs at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the month. Then the total is what we call CGPIP, cost of goods placed into process. Deduct the total cost of the unfinished jobs at the end of the month or at the end of the year. So that is your work in process end. So after deducting the work in process end from CGPIP, you get your cost of goods manufactured or CGM. This is the total cost of the jobs that will be transferred out from work in process to finished goods inventory. So, ma-change na ang status. If the job is still in process, then that will be recorded as part of your work in process inventory. Once the job has been completed, it will be transferred out to finished goods inventory. And the completed jobs from finished goods inventory, if they are sold, then that will be transferred out to cost of goods sold. So notice from raw materials, the raw materials are the cost of materials, of the unprocessed materials that you obtain from your supplier. Then, after that, it goes to, asa na ning symbol? Ayun, ha? Insert symbol. Okay, symbol. Right arrow. Kana. Asawang kano. Okay. The raw materials will soon be converted into once started na in the production for processing, that becomes part of your work in process. Then, from the work in process, okay, that will, once completed, that will be transferred out to finished goods inventory. So it will be placed na in the bodega or warehouse awaiting delivery. So next, when the completed job is sold, then there is a transfer now from finished goods inventory to where? Uy. Okay, it will be transferred out to cost of goods sold. CGS. Maklaro ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Miss.
Ako, maklaro na ako, kaya ako may gabuhat. Pero kamong gatan-aw, maklaro ra ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay,
Yes,
ano
miss.
kung kana bitang 2020 vision pamanggod mo, mga nindot pamanog, pero buyag ug mga mata, may pamanin yung eyesight. Okay, kining magkatiguang ta, labi na kang we're dealing with numbers, we're working with numbers, no? Sige ta gamit og spreadsheet, sige ta og compute, mauna nga magkadugay, madaot gid ni atong mata, mag eyeglasses gyud. Majority of the accounting staff, the accounting personnel are wearing eyeglasses in the long run, no? Mana magkatiguang magkadako na ang inyong reading sa mata. Okay, that's the flow of the inventory accounts from raw materials na unprocessed pa. Once it is processed, it becomes direct materials, which is used on a particular job and recorded as part of your work in process. So work in process represents the cost of the unfinished jobs. The costs of direct materials used, direct labor, and overhead applied to that job. Then soon the work in process, if completed, it will be transferred out to finished goods inventory. And finally, when the job is sold, it will be transferred out to cost of goods sold. Okay, so let us now go back to our cost of goods sold statement. So, from the materials available for use, deduct the materials inventory and so kung direct materials used ang ipa-compute, you deduct the materials inventory and from materials available for use. Pwede sad if naay indirect materials used nga na-appeal diri sa materials available for use, then remove it. Meaning you deduct the indirect materials used from materials available for use in order that the balance represents only the cost of direct materials used. This one. Then followed by direct labor cost plus the applied overhead equals the TMC, also known as total production cost. Add the work in process beginning equals your CGPIP, cost of goods placed into process, minus the cost of unfinished jobs at the end of the month, so that's your work in process end, equals your cost of goods manufactured, which is your cost of the jobs recorded previously under work in process. And once they are 100% complete as to materials, labor, and overhead, that will be transferred out to finished goods. So jobs transferred to the warehouse, jobs transferred to finished goods inventory will be part of your cost of goods manufactured. So this represents the cost of the completed jobs regardless of what month were they started, whether they were started last month or whether they were started this month, for as long as for this month, they are already complete. That's why it is transferred out from work in process to finished goods inventory. Then add your finished goods inventory beginning equals your TIGAS. TIGAS means, what is TIGAS?
Total goods available.
Available for sale, ma'am.
Okay, total goods available for sale. Then minus your finished goods inventory and equals your unadjusted cost of goods sold for the period, otherwise known as cost of goods sold at standard cost. For interim reporting, when we say interim reporting, that is reporting at less than 12 months. So reporting for the quarter, reporting for the semi-annual period, or every after 6 months, that's interim reporting. Reporting for a period less than 1 year. So for interim reporting, you need not adjust yet your cost of goods sold. But if it is already end of the accounting period, then you are going to compare. So you have to remember this rule. Compare the actual overhead, that's ACO, with the applied overhead, or APO. If the actual overhead is greater than the applied overhead, the difference is called under-applied overhead. So that under-applied overhead will be added to your cost of goods sold at standard cost in order to get the adjusted cost of goods sold. Usahay ra ba maglibog ta asa gani ani ang less than, asa ganitong greater than? All you have to remember is kung unsay gingangahan maunay dako, di ba? Kung unsay gingangahan, kung unsay kanang murabag kanang asa dapita nag-open ba ang iyahang sign, Mo to siya dako. So if actual overhead is greater than applied overhead, the difference is called under applied overhead. If the actual overhead is less than the applied overhead, the difference is a negative amount representing over applied overhead. So dako ang overhead gi-apply to production than the actual overhead incurred for the period. That is why the excess, that negative amount, represents your over applied overhead, which is to be deducted from your unadjusted CGS. So by the end of the counting period, your CGS statement would look like this. So you will show your unadjusted CGS, this one, add under applied overhead, deduct the over applied overhead. Bring down the balance. That gives you your CGS at actual cost, otherwise known as the adjusted CGS. So is that understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions so far?
None from my end, ma'am.
Feel free to ask questions. Okay, I would like to take up with you one of the exercises there in your textbook. Go to exercise 2-2. Exercise 2-2. Owen, kindly read the opening statement. Owen. Wala, natugs Owen. Wadi ay maminaw sa klase. Ayog, sige, katog Owen kay kuan pa hayag pang dako. Unyarag katog ini gabi eh. Oh, Owen, you read. Mo lagi ni nakadaot sa online ba? Kay kamo, i-turn on ang computer, pero wa din minaw, nitug, nakatug, or doing something else, or going something else. Okay, may we ask Trisha to read the opening statement? Okay, natugs Owen.
Sa dash problem 1-2, miss.
Dili, 2-2 na ta, chapter 2.
Okay.
Katang exercise, di ba? Exercise number hyphen number. The first digit there is the
Ay,
chapter
miss.
number. Nya ang the second digit maunay ikapila nga exercise in the chapter. Okay? Sige, read the opening statement.
Oh, actually, miss, wala pa ko ka-purchase sa book.
Nga mo kang purchase pod. Kay madara ni mo pasar ang cost accounting
Ay,
without
dili, miss, because
Ha?
out of stock daw ang book sa accounting niya. Wala ko kaapas og bay.
nga nung nagpadugay-dugay mampog ka. Nga paano? Kung mag-exam ko, tanan ra ba natong exams sa classroom ra ba gyud ta on-site? Di ra ba ko mo allow o gamit o kanang borrowed books nga with answers na on the book? Unsaon man na nimo ron? How will you solve that problem that you have created? Why were you not able to buy it? Perting daghana and pila to ka days nga nag-atang si Mr. Ray Amaya for the distribution of the books. Nya magnganga lang ka sa discussion kay wa kay libro. O magsalida ka na akong tupad akong konon ra. Hoy, kanindot. Nya kung maghatag ko og seat work, nya graded nga seat work, I don't allow you to be borrowing books from one another. Kay maunay makahatag og tentasyon nga mangupya o makigtabi sa tupad. Di ba? Accounting major man ka nganong wa man ka mo acquire og kaugalingong book nga may rabag ka sayon aning cost accounting topics, daghan ra ba kay ning cost accounting topics? So like in this case, you're asked to read the opening statement. Wa kay mabasa kay wa man kay libro. Manawag sa ka sa imong classmates. Paano? Yeah, mag-answer na taron diha within the book. Munang I don't prescribe you to buy a notebook because naamang good na empty pages or empty space where you can take down notes. Nya labi na ani exercise number 2. This follows the format of your material ledger card since they are using first in, first out perpetual inventory system. Ay, kung gingna, daghan kayong wa mo palit og book. Or gigamit ninyo ang kwarta intended to buy the book. Gitagaan na mo sa inyong parents or sa inyong guardian, ya wa gamita. Paano? Estudyante gyud na gyud libro, no? Kung naay libro dito sa library, you can borrow the book in the library if there is a copy. But what if there's none? Paano? Wag yun na ninyo hunahuna adaan. Niya kung magsige discuss ang teacher mo reklamo sad mo nga uy man mi mag-solve og problem, wa man mi application sa theories, wa man mi gamit og libro. Nya kanara bang reklamador kaayo ang kanara bagyong daginoton ang kanang kandidatos hagbong. Ang mga bright mao hinoy kugihan kay mo palit og libro. Saon? When you are going to your class, make sure that you are prepared. You're like a warrior going to the battlefield. So dapat ready ka with all your weapons. You should be ready with all your gadgets. And you're supposed to bring with you in the classroom your laptop as well as your mobile phone. So in case mo malfunction ang laptop, at least naapay mobile phone nga magamit. Whether we are having online or on-site classes, we still have to use those gadgets. Kung wala kapalit o gadget, manghuwam. Syaro kapubrig, way kaila, way silingan, way paryente, way amiga, gamigo, nga dunay kahuwaman na nimo og laptop. O magpaabot lang ka kinsay mo offer og pahuwam nimo og laptop. Ayaw pagpaabot nga ang grasya mo duol nimo, ikaw ang mangita sa unsay kinahanglanon. Dako na gud ka, di namang gud ka bata, you are not a pupil anymore, you are a college student na. Di ba? Sige. Can we have volunteer? Sige, Jose.
Basahon ang problem, ma'am, no?
Yes. Opening statement lang sa.
Okay. Using first in, first out method, perpetual inventory costing system, and the following information, determine the cost of materials used and the cost of the July 31 inventory.
Okay. So in actual practice, if you are using perpetual inventory system, you adopt a continuous record of your inventory. And this continuous record of inventory is what we call your stock card. So the format of the stock card is the one that you see in your book below, which is still unfilled. You have the column heading, so received, issued, balance, the date. Then for the received section, divided into 3, we have quantity, followed by UC for unit cost, TC for total cost. The issued column is also subdivided into 3, quantity, unit cost, total cost. So with the running balance, this is where the unused or the unsold stocks will be reflected in terms of quantity left on hand or unused or unsold times the unit cost equals the total cost. So we started with July 1. Balance on hand is 1,000 yards of linen at 40 pesos each. So this stock card pertains to a particular stock, to a particular material. Like, let us say, we're talking about linens here. So, a kind of linen. So, usually, you make use of an index card as your material ledger card. And then follow this format. So, on July 1, the 1,000 yards will be entered on the balance column under quantity. So write 1,000. Okay. What's the unit cost of the 1,000 yards? Unit cost.
40 pesos.
Put there 40 pesos. Right? 40 pesos under unit cost sa balance. So multiply quantity by the unit cost, you get the total cost of your materials inventory beginning. The materials inventory on July 1 is how much?
40,000.
So right on the last column, under the TC column, 40,000. Next, date. You write below 1. On the next line, you write 3. Issued 250 yards. Remember, they are using first in, first out. Ang unang gi-acquire, ang unang gipalit, may unang ibaligya. Ang unang nasulod, may unang ipagawas. That's the main concept there of first in, first out. So on July 3, where will you write 250 yards? Where will you write the 250 yards? Consider yourself as the warehouse in charge or the bodeguero. You're going to issue 250 yards. So where will you write 250 yards? Under?
Quantity,
Under?
miss.
Quantity sa
Issued, miss.
column. Yes. Under quantity sa issued column, write 250. First in, first out. Unsay unang unit cost na record?
40 pesos, miss.
40, ma'am.
40. Right, 40 under unit cost sa issue. So 250 times 40 equals how much?
10,000,
10,000.
miss.
So total cost of the materials issued on July 3 is 10,000, right? 10,000 pesos under the total cost column of the issued column. Now let's go to the balance nga column. Previous quantity 1,000 yards minus 250 yards issued equals how many yards left on hand?
750, ma'am.
750.
Okay, under quantity balance column, you write 750 with the unit cost of 40 equals your materials inventory at July 3 is how much?
30,000, ma'am.
30,000. Okay, next line. Write the date. 5. Ayun na ibalik-balik pag-write ang July. Kung kausara na isuwat ang month at on the first date of that month. Okay, so day na lang. So day 5. 5 no. Okay, what happened on July 5? Receive 500 yards at 45 each. So write 500 under the quantity received column. Then on the next column for unit cost received, write 45. What's the total cost? 500.
22,500.
Yes, 22,500. Okay, add to ta sa balance nga column. Katong unang unit cost nga 40 pesos each, pila ang nahibilin on July 5?
750, ma'am.
750. So write it there in line with July 5. So quantity balance on July 5, 750 multiplied by the unit cost of 40 equals 30,000. Then on the next available line, ang next nga unit cost is 45. Sa katong nag-unit cost of 45, pilay nahibilin. Pilay on hand.
500, ma'am.
So write 500 under quantity balance column. Then unit cost 45. Therefore, what is 500 times 45 equals?
22,500, ma'am.
Okay, on the TC column, sa last column, you write 22,500. Draw a single line across 500 yards. Draw a single line after 22,500. Bring down the total for day 5. How many yards left on hand on July 5? So you add 750 and 500.
52,500, ma'am.
Ang sa July 5, ra? 750 plus 500, pila?
Oh,
1,250.
So write it there. 1,250. Draw a single line after that. Total. Okay, go to the last column. TC nga column. What is the total cost of the materials left unused or on hand on July 5? What is the total cost of materials left on hand or unused on July 5? So you are 30,000 and 22,500 equals
52,500.
52,500, ma'am.
2,500. So double rule 1,250, double rule 52,500. So mo na imong inventory end, materials inventory end as of July 5. Okay, next. July 6, issued 150 yards. So under quantity issued, you write 150. Under unit cost issued, you write 40. So how much is the total cost issued on July 6? 150 times 40.
6,000.
Okay, 6,000 pesos. Now we go to the balance column. Sa tag 40, pilay nahibilin. Ang 600 gikuhaan og 150, di ba? Sorry. The 750 rather gikuhaan ang previous balance ba sa katong tag 40. The 750 gikuhaan og 150 nga gi-issue. Ang nahibilin is
600, ma'am.
600, miss.
quantity balance, you write 600. Unit cost 40. So what is 600 times 40?
24,000.
24,000. On the next line, with a unit cost of 45, how many yards left on hand?
500, ma'am.
Minus 150. Oh, no. 7, pila to? Tatag 45 na binlan og 500 yards. Di ba? Kaya imong unit cost under issuance 40 raman na. So ang imong tag 45 wa pa mahilabti, wa pa ma-change. It remains at 500 on hand. So 500 yards times the unit cost of 45 equals 22,500. Draw a single line after the quantity na 500. Draw a single line after 22,500 pesos. Bring down the total. So what is the total number of yards left on hand on July 6?
$1,100, miss.
1,100 yards. And the total cost of the 1,100 yards is how much?
46,500.
46,500, miss.
1,500. Double rule the 1,100. Double rule the 46,500. Now you know what to do next. Continue. July 10 na po. Ay.
Excuse me, ma'am. Is the ending balance 28,000, ma'am?
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are you done, Jose?
Yes, ma'am, but I only filled out the balance column.
Ang balance column, right, man, out, ang ito, di ay. Isa man ka, uy. Can you share your screen now to the class? Pwede ra na nimong unsa na? I-screenshot nga i-share dayon.
Sige, ma'am, kadiyot lang, ma'am, kay sa papel man ko na-answer.
Di ba naman ay table diha sa book? Anong wala lang nimo gibutang diha ang answer?
Moro na ako, ma'am, sa balance.
Ang balance column ray imong gi-reflect. Wala kay issued nga column. Nya wasa kay received nga column. Now what if aside from completing the material ledger card, you will be asked how much is the total cost of materials issued for the month? So you cannot answer that because you don't have your complete material ledger card. Wa man kay issued nga column. Balance ra may imong gi-compute. Di ba? May lang na
Yes,
kung,
ma'am.
you're going to determine the materials inventory end for a particular date. Pero kung pangutanon ka, pilay total material purchases for the month, pilay total material purchases on July 15, pilay total cost of materials issued on July 10, or pilay total cost of materials for the month of July, you cannot find it there in your computation. Ending inventory naman imong gi-compute. Di ba?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. Asiran sa nako.
Oh. Naam ka na, di ba naam na linya-linya diya sa libro? Na columns, di ba? Jose? Provided na ang columns, ang heading.
Yes, ma'am.
Diha ka mag-answer. So you are completing man the material ledger card. Okay, any volunteer? Kinsay maka-share screen sa material ledger card that you have filled up? So at this point, kinsa na inahuman, can you share screen na? Do not wait for the answer to be fed. Di na mo mga bata, kinahanglan mohuwat pag unsay hungit sa maestra. Kaya kung nag face to face ta karon, mosoroy gyud ko sa entire classroom ka kung tanawon inyong trabaho. Insakto bag sa dili. Morning disadvantage sa online class kay di ta ka inspect tagsa-tagsa sa inyong work to go around and check your work. Eunice, are you done? Eunice May?
Not yet, miss.
What about Angel Grace?
No, miss.
What pa ka man? Isabella? Nahuman na ka? Maria Nina Isabella.
Not yet pa, miss.
For those human na ano, pag-share screen lang ha, muwat ra ko. Yes, Rachel, Ann, are you done?
Yes, miss.
Sige, i-share screen palihog.
I have not yet. Wa pa na ko nakuha akong book, miss.
Asa ni mo kwaon?
Sa kuan, miss, sa school, miss, ba? Ugma pa daw, ma-distribute.
Oh. Ingon si Amaya?
Yes, miss.
Sa department siya nag-distribute sa books? Sa office?
Mura, miss.
Yes, miss. Ato siya, miss.
Abi na ko dito sa ilahang, ano nga? Coffee shop. Ni-end ta sa July 6, no? Ganina? Kutob ta sa July 6.
Oh, yes, miss.
So mag-10 na ta.
Yes, miss.
Sige ha, July 10. Okay, 110 times 40 equals 4,400. Check. So, ang imong quantity balance, 990 with the
Ay,
total
for
of
19 pa siya, miss.
42,100. Okay, check. Then, pag July 11, 10 times 40 equals 400. Sa balance, you have 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards with a total cost of 42,500. Check. Pag July 15, under received column, 500 times 50 equals 25,000. For the balance nga column, 1,500 with a total cost of 67,500. Check. Sige, next. July 20. Compare your work ha with the one shown on the screen. So, pag July 20, under issued column, 300 times the unit cost at 50 equals 15,000. For the balance column, there are 1,200 yards on hand with the total cost of 52,500. Check. Then on October 26, issued 600 yards. What mo gi-indicate sa ang 600 no? Yeah, with a total cost of 24,500. Walang nimo ma-indicate ang total ha? Indicate niya under issued column. So for the balance, we have 600 yards on hand with a total cost of 28,000. Okay, correct. So you know
Eh.
now how to fill up the material ledger card. Are there
Excuse me,
any
miss.
questions? Yes.
And saan to pag-indicate ang 600 sa issued, miss? I-double rule, rabi hapon, miss.
I-double rule ra gihapon ang total.
Thank you, miss.
Gets new class ang presentation ni Rochelle Ann. I hope you got the same answer. Correct man iyang presentation. So now we go to the last exercise. Mo pili na lang ko og okay, this one. Exercise 2-3. Ay, 5 minutes naman lang di ay. Anyway, you still have a class after this. Am I right?
Wala na, ma'am.
Awan na way klase. So this is your last class. Okay, so next week, face-to-face ta, we will continue with chapter 2. After we discuss chapter 2, we will have your first mastery test, which will be taken on site, covering chapters 1 and 2. So the earliest date for our first mastery test will be on Thursday next week. Unsa na nga date? February 9, no? February 9. Assuming nga next week. Please share the discussion today to all the other groups. So, ang atong class rep in this class is kaniyate, no? Jose?
Yes, ma'am.
So, provide the link to the other groups for the recorded discussion. See to it nga there are 2 students in this class assigned to do the recording. So, in case mapalpak ang usa, naatay fallback, naatay na usa pa nga naka-record sa discussion. So please share it with the other groups. And make sure also that your class will be given the link for the recorded discussion of Group 5, Group 6, and Group 7. Tulo ka recorded discussions ang dapat ninyong makuha from the other 3 groups. Then share the recorded discussion today to the other groups. So are there any questions? So I want you to answer at home exercise 2-1, 2-3, 2-4, and 2-5. Kutob lang sa exercise 2-5. Answer it by yourself at home and write it on, show your answer on the Excel file using the Microsoft Excel nga file. So like sheet 1, change the heading sheet 1 with exercise 2-1. Then sheet 2 for exercise 2-3. Sheet 3 for 2-4. Sheet 5 for exercise 2-5. When you write on the upper left-hand side, EX 2-5, indicate the page number in your book. Okay? Is that clear? Wa mo tingog.
Yes,
Amo
miss.
ning i-divide per cluster, ma'am, no?
Dili na.
Ah,
Di na siya cluster work. Individual work assignment ni.
okay, ma'am.
Pero not graded. I am not going to collect your work. But we will have we will have class recitation. I will pick at random kung kinsay mo answer sa kada exercise. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, miss.
Any other questions, class? I hope that you learned something from today's discussion. So it pays good no nga to be present during the class discussion. Okay, if you don't have any questions, that's all for today. Thank you for joining this session. Have a nice day. Don't forget your dinner. And don't forget your individual assignment. Make use of Microsoft Excel. Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you, miss.
Thank you, miss. Bye.